welcome back to another true crime video. I hope you have your wine glasses poured all the way to the top, fill it to the brim, and if you don't drink, I hope you have your joints, blunts, bowls, bongs, whatever shit you smoke out of, packed and ready to go. I hope you have your throw blanket wrapped around you, because today we're going to be talking about one of the most controversial and well-known and horrifying crimes Canada has ever seen. This true crime video was suggested by Jerica Mercado. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name incorrectly. She wanted me to cover the Barbie and Ken killers, better known as Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolga. Carla up her last name, but I don't really care because she's a piece of shit. But Paul and Carla, and I don't know about you guys, but when I think of Ken and Barbie, I think of like Ken and Barbie. Really kind of overly perfect white guy slash white girl. And I think of Toy Story when Barbie and Ken were together, and then I think maybe they weren't together. This couple was nicknamed the Barbie and Ken killers. I don't know about y'all, but they ain't looking like no Barbie and Ken. They are not good looking to me. How the f does Carla look anything like a Barbie in any lifetime, anywhere on earth? She is horrifying. Her hair is horrifying. But that was their nickname. They were nicknamed the Barbie and Ken killers. Paul was also given eventually the nickname the schoolgirl killer or the Scarborough rapist. And Carla was given the nickname Witch of Ontario. Needless to say, not good nicknames to have ever in life. They also were nicknamed Ken and Barbie. Barbie and Ken. How? I don't know. But it's because from the outside looking in, everyone thought they were a perfect couple. A beautiful couple. I don't know where the beauty comes in, but this is what people were saying. Long story short, before we get into the gruesome, crazy, up details of these serial killers, is not everything you see is reality. People looking at the relationship dreamed of having that type of relationship, and behind closed doors they were both sinister, killing psychopaths slash rapists slash murderers slash serial killers. They were not the ideal couple. They were not Barbie and Ken, and both of them can rot in a fiery pit of hell. But let's start from the very beginning. Paul Bernardo was born on August 27, 1964 in Ontario, Canada, to his parents, Kenneth and Marilyn Bernardo. His parents weren't rich, but they also weren't dirt poor. Again, like most serial killers that I've read about, Paul came from a toxic, abusive home. Paul's dad, Kenneth, actually got arrested on molestation charges, and it was even rumored that his dad, Kenneth, had molested his own sister. However, this news didn't seem to faze Paul because everyone recalls him being a happy-go-lucky kid that was always smiling. There were a few red flags in Paul, however. When he was a kid, he liked to start fires. For instance, he joined the Boy Scouts, and during Boy Scout he would light fires for fun. So clearly a small kid that's into arson and also smiling at the same time, so it seems like he's happy. But if I saw a kid setting fires during a Boy Scout outing and was smiling, I'd be like, okay, so he's a psycho. But besides the point, there were red flags when he was a child. It wasn't until he was 16 where there was noticeable changes in his behavior. His mother, Marilyn, admitted to Paul that he was a product of an affair and actually not the child of Kenneth. Paul, his whole life, thinking Kenneth was his dad, which technically he is, he raised him. This whole time he's thinking Kenneth is his biological father, when in fact he doesn't know his biological father. His biological father is someone his mother had an affair with, which would explain arguments in the home, toxicity between the mom and dad, and just a toxic environment altogether. After Marilyn dropped this bombshell on Paul, Paul becomes extremely verbally abusive to his mother. Doesn't matter that he's 16, doesn't matter that she's an adult, adult, he's a child. He starts annihilating her with words. Slut, whore, bitch. Anything you could think of that a child should not be saying to his mother, Paul was saying to his mother. Straight disrespect. Marilyn was depressed, not happy. Oftentimes she would leave the kids unattended at home while she went to go visit other family far away from this toxic family home. And then when she would come home, she would keep to herself and stay in her room. So clearly Paul was not close with his mother, and I don't believe he was close to his father. But also Kenneth, who's been raising him his entire life, got arrested for molestation charges to his own goddamn sister. So Kenneth is not a good role model for Paul to be looking up to because he's a dirtbag, just like Paul turns out to be. Paul's first girlfriend, Nadine Brammer, actually left him for one of his friends. Now, we all know a girl like this. You know, she jumps from one friend in the group to the next friend in the group. We like to call them homie hoppers. So his first girlfriend ended up being a homie hopper. She was over Paul's controlling behavior. She was done having Paul tell her what to do, what to wear, what to say. So she moved on to one of his friends that was a better fit for her. Obviously, Paul is egotistical, narcissistic, really full of himself. So his girlfriend, and in fact his first girlfriend ever, leaves him for one of his friends. One of his friends he probably viewed as less than. So in retaliation, he took all of the things that Nadine had got him while they were in a relationship together and incinerated them, burned them. I don't know how this is retaliation when Nadine was clearly done with him and was one of his friends, but in his mind, turning to fire and arson and burning all her shit was retaliation. To me, that's clear signs that Paul was heading down the path of becoming a psychopath. People recall Paul being good looking, charming. He had no issues in the Department of Women. Now, I personally don't get it. I don't find him good looking. He actually is really creepy looking to me. I don't know if it's his teeth or just like the overly blonde hair. I know he was blonde, but it looks like he added extra blonde. It's like, really, do you need to be that blonde? It's just like, what do women find so appealing about this dude? And he seems, from everything that I read, that he just comes off as this asshole. So I don't know why women find assholes attractive. I mean, I found assholes attractive, but after they tricked me into thinking they were good guys. It's different. Paul Bernardo was an asshole from the very beginning, but people found him good looking, charming. If I was at a bar and he came up to me and wanted to buy me a drink, I'd say no. But then he ends up being a serial killer rapist, and that would have probably landed me in a very bad situation because most serial killers, especially narcissistic ones, cannot handle rejection. But I'm going off on a tangent. I'm just saying I don't understand what women found so fascinating about Mr. Paul Bernardo. After graduating, Paul got a job at a company called American Amway. He did sales. He would buy books from motivational speakers, read them from beginning to end, learn lessons throughout the books to apply it to how he would speak and pick up women at bars when he went out with his friends. I don't know about y'all, but I don't know any man on this planet that's buying motivational speakers book to try and get pussy. I've never heard of this before until I did this true crime case. But Paul Bernardo used his knowledge from motivational speaking books, which is supposed to motivate you about life and wanting to live and be successful and be decent, kind human beings, and used it to get ass at bars with his friends. And it worked for him because he picked up a lot of women at bars. A lot of them. Paul began attending school at the University of Toronto at Scarborough. At this point, when he's attending university, he has developed really dark, gnarly sexual fantasies. One of his fantasies included starting a virgin farm where he would breed virgins. How do you breed virgins, bro? Like, that doesn't even make sense. But that was one of his deep, deep, deep troubling fantasies. He wanted to breed virgins so he could then rape them. This is one of the most troubling fantasies that he had. He also enjoyed rough sex and anal sex. He enjoyed anything forceful when it came to man versus woman. He would degrade or embarrass almost all his dates in public. He would absolutely not stay in relationships long, and if he did, he would always cheat on them. He was not a loyal companion. He was verbally, mentally, and physically abusive to all his girlfriends, and he would threaten to kill them if they opened up and spoke about how he treated them. So if he dated someone, he would abuse them, and when the relationship was coming to a close, he would threaten to kill that person if she told anyone about the abuse. He's a piece of shit. However, in 1986, 2 women that Paul Bernardo dated were actually granted restraining orders against Paul for obscene, degrading, and offensive phone calls he made to both of them. Carla Homolka was born on May 4th, 1970. She's a Taurus. I am disgusted. Ugh, she's Notorious. Mainly, I'm disgusted by this picture of her. She's not a good looking chick, and if I was Barbie, I'd also be disrespected that this chick right here was coined the nickname Barbie. It's just, no. Like, not even close, no. Carla has become one of Canada's most well-known serial killers. In fact, being a woman and a serial killer is very rare. There are not too many serial killers on this planet, unless, of course, they're just so good they don't get caught, that are females. When Carla was a child, she witnessed her dad getting drunk and fighting with her mother. Now at this point, what serial killer has not come from a broken home? Almost every single one of them has come from a home that's just completely and utterly upside down. Carla had 2 younger sisters, Lori and Tammy. Their dad loved them all, especially Carla, but when he was drunk, he would insult her and be very, very, very mean to her. So she's used to men being abusive in some sort of way. Carla's mother knew that her father was cheating on her, and instead of bossing the f up, packing her bags, and being done with a man who treats your children like shit, gets drunk on a regular basis, and treats you like shit, and is cheating on you, she ended up staying and would suggest things like threesomes or let him cheat and then move on. And she wasn't providing a good example to her daughters on what to do when you're in a situation with a man that's not healthy and is toxic. So not only is Carla witnessing her father being drunk and verbally abusive and or physically abusive, but she's witnessing her mother being a goddamn doormat. That's just bizarre, weird behavior. And again, a very toxic environment for any child to be growing up in. Carla was very smart in school, good at school, but starting at a very young age, it was said that she didn't get along with other children. She was combative, she argued a lot, she started trouble with other children, and she talked back. She did not take to adults well. If adults told her what to do, she did not handle that well, and she did not have respect for adults. Carla ended up attending Sir Winston Churchill Secondary School. When she was attending there, she had a depressive episode. She would not dress in the proper clothing that the school required. She would cut herself. She made multiple false claims of attempting suicide or wanting to commit suicide to seek the attention of others. Any attention, whether that was bad, was good for Carla because she just wanted it to be all about her. Carla developed sadistic sexual fantasies and behaviors. She also got sexual gratification from her own pain and humiliation. I don't know about y'all, but if I'm in pain or I just humiliated myself, I don't, my yoo-hoo down there does not get wet. I'm not horny. I don't get any type of sexual gratification off pain or humiliation. So from the sounds of it, Carla was already up before she met Paul. She was heading down a very dark path long before Paul made her go deeper into the rabbit hole. It's reported that she was pretty popular. She had a lot of friends. She didn't lack in the social department. And underneath all that popularity was this psychopath waiting to be unleashed. She was caged in her own mind, body, and soul and had tons of friends. And none of these friends were like, there might be something wrong with Carla. I think Carla might need a therapist. So that is a lesson in itself, people, that you should not strive to want to be friends with the most popular girl in school, because the most popular girl in school could be f***ed up. Could be a psychopathic serial killer. Unlike most serial killers, Carla loved animals. She loved pets, which is very weird because most serial killers, the #1 sign is that they hate animals. They hate pets. They usually kill them, but Carla loved them. She actually worked at a veterinarian clinic, and at the age of 17, she flew to a pet convention, and in comes Paul Bernardo. That is how they met. He was 23. Now let's rewind a little bit. Prior to Paul meeting Carla, Scarborough in Ontario was being plagued with a series of rapes and attacks. Horrific crimes were filling this city, all done by yours truly, Paul Bernardo. On May 4th, 1987, which is super ironic because his soon-to-be psychotic wife, Carla, was born on May 4th. A young woman was getting off a bus. Paul grabbed her and raped her right by her parents' house. 2 more women would be attacked by Paul. All of them were between the ages of 15 and 21. The attacks would include verbal abuse, beatings, obviously sexual abuse, and he would threaten to come back and kill them if they spoke to police. Of course, like any woman, even though he threatens to hurt you when you go to the police, a few of them came forward, and at this point, police came to the conclusion that these rapes and these attacks and these horrific crimes that were plaguing the city were all being committed by the same man. And this is where he was nicknamed the Scarborough Rapist. Between May of 1987 and December of 1992, Paul went on a rampage. He attacked and raped between 18 or 19 women, but it's probably more. Most of his victims he grabbed from bus stops, but one 15-year-old girl was actually attacked in her own bedroom. Paul was actually named a suspect 2 times for the rapes and was questioned by police, but he was never officially named a suspect. In November of 1987, a woman went to the police to file a complaint against a man she was having problems with named Paul Bernardo. Paul actually owed her money. They got into his car. He held a knife to her throat and demanded sex. She refused. Paul then drove this woman to an isolated area by a factory and was searching his car in a frenzy for his knife. Lucky for her, while he was in this frenzy, freaking out about finding his knife, she was able to escape the vehicle and hide from Paul, who eventually drove off. She then went to police and reported this issue. The police report described Paul as a violent, knife-wielding sexual sadist with a pattern of frenzied sexual assaults. This police report was submitted on January 22nd, 1988. However, the police report was never, and I repeat this, never brought to the attention of the team investigating the serial rapes, which makes no sense to me because how does a police department take a report about attempted rape and not give it to the department or team investigating current rapes that are happening in the city? Are people that lazy when they go to work? Do they not care enough to do their goddamn job? Because maybe if they did their job and they caught him after January 22nd, 1988, when she filed the goddamn report, he wouldn't have gone on to rape more women and eventually murder people. Prime example of police dropping the ball, unfortunately. At this point, a composite drawing of the Scarborough Rapist hit the media, hit the newspapers, and Paul's own friends, close friends of Paul, were blown away at the fact that this drawing of the person that's been going around the city raping people looks like our friend Paul. Is it Paul? And then also, if you're friends with him and you know how he is with women, why wouldn't they come forward and say, yo, honestly, my boy Paul, he's a little aggressive with women. He could be good for this. This drawing actually looks like him. Once this drawing hit the newspaper, another woman came forward and called the sexual assault squad. She said, hey, this picture and this description matches this guy I know named Paul Bernardo. He carries a knife in his car and he actually drives around with it and brags about raping women. Paul Bernardo is brought in to the police station for questioning. Like a cocky little he's cool, he's calm, and he's collected during this interview. During this interview, police asked if they could collect samples of Paul's hair and his blood for DNA. Paul agrees, so they take the samples. Now at this point, DNA is a little different than it is now. Paul was never named an official suspect. Even after all this, he was never named an official suspect. And the rapes stopped in 1990. In October of 1987, Carla and Paul meet at the hotel restaurant, at a restaurant in the hotel that Carla was staying at. In walks Paul Bernardo. Blonde, good looking and charming. Everything Carla has ever wanted in a guy. The man of her dreams has just walked through the door. They meet, they have instant chemistry. And on that first night, on the first night that they met, go up to Carla's bedroom and in front of Paul's friend and Carla's friend, they have sex with one another, right in front of their friends. Now, I don't know about you, but that's not normal behavior. It's weird to me. I don't know what people are into. I would never do that. I don't know a lot of females that would. To each its own. I just think having sex with a man on the first night, let alone having sex with a man on the first night in front of your friends is weird. But at this very moment, Paul realizes Carla is not like his other girlfriends. He has finally met a woman who has the same sick, twisted sexual fantasies as he does. Recipe for disaster. Rather quickly into their relationship turned abusive. Paul was the master and Carla was his slave. She would refer to him as king and he would refer to her as slave. Some sick, twisted shit, you guys. Sick shit. He would tell her how to dress, what to eat, how to think, breathe, live, you name it. He was molding her into exactly what he wanted, but then he would change his mind about what he wanted and make her do something completely different. But no matter what he said or how he said it, Carla complied. She gave this man everything he wanted, just like her mother did for her father. Paul would call her fat, he would call her ugly, he would make her feel worthless. And now anyone that's been in an abusive relationship, I've been in an abusive relationship, they'll put you this high to knock you the off that pedestal, to let you know how little they think of you, until you start believing that about yourself, and then you start to believe that you'll never be good enough for not only yourself but for anyone else to ever love you. So that's basically how Paul was trapping her into never wanting to leave. She probably convinced herself, after all the "you're fat, you're ugly, you're worthless, you're a piece of shit, I hate you, you're disgusting," she believed it and was so obsessed with being around him and being with him, it became like her whole life. Now, during the entirety of Paul and Carla's relationship, Paul was out raping women, and Carla knew. She knew this information and was okay with it. She approved it. He would go out, rape someone, come home and tell her about the rape, and then she'd want to sleep with him after. Your man just went out, raped a woman, told you about the rape, and you want to sleep with him after? Okay. When Paul met Carla, Carla was not a virgin, and we all know that Paul had this weird fantasy about having a virgin farm and raping virgins. So he was upset that Carla wasn't a virgin, but also it didn't end their relationship. After 3 years, Paul started getting bored with his relationship with Carla, and he started setting his eyes on her younger sister, Tammy. Tammy was 15 years old. Paul told Carla that he wanted, before they got married, to have her sister's innocence. On December 23rd, 1990, Carla agreed to give Paul a Christmas gift of her young sister, Tammy. Carla laced Tammy's drink with halcyon. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. That she stole from the vet clinic she worked at. Carla then held a cloth soaked in anesthetic over Tammy's face. While the rest of Carla's family was asleep in other rooms of the house, Paul and Carla took turns raping her unconscious younger sister, Tammy. Paul and Carla videotaped the entire brutal incident. While Tammy was drugged, she vomited, and with the inability to breathe, she choked on her own vomit, and she died. Carla and Paul called the police, and they reported that she died in her sleep. There was a chemical burn on Tammy's face from when Carla was holding the cloth to her face, and it was ignored during the autopsy and at the hospital. Tammy's death was ruled an accident by choking on her own vomit due to alcohol poisoning. At Tammy's funeral, Paul was seen stroking Tammy's hair, being a super creep. And Carla and Paul also put something in the casket with Tammy. In 1993, her casket was exhumed, and in her casket, they found a picture that Paul and Carla took the night of the brutal, disgusting incident that they left in her casket. After Tammy's death, Paul and Carla would role play the night in the bedroom. Carla would even put on some of Tammy's clothes and pretend to be Tammy while trying to sexually gratify Paul. I just don't know. Every time I research true crime stories, there's so many people in the stories where I just want to say, what the f is wrong with you? What the f is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? And it's just like, so many people around the people that were committing crimes have opportunities to do something, because people aren't blind. People notice things. Unless your head is completely in the clouds, people can know when something is not right. 4 months after Tammy died, Carla and Paul lured a 14-year-old girl into a wooded area in the woods where they assaulted her and then let her go. The 14-year-old gave full descriptions to the police about what happened and who attacked her. By the time she was describing to the police what happened, they determined that that attack was indeed done by the Scarborough rapist, which is Paul Bernardo. But now he's got sidekick, Carla. In June of 1991, Paul kidnapped Leslie Mahaffey outside of her family home by knife point. He took Leslie home with Carla, where he raped her repeatedly, and also told Carla to do the same while he videotaped it. He then killed Leslie, cut her body into pieces, put the pieces into boxes which he filled with concrete, and dumped those boxes in a lake near Burlington. Carla had befriended this girl that she worked with at the clinic and eventually brought her to her and Paul's home. On June 7th, 1991, Paul and Carla laced her drink with animal sedatives, and when she passed out, they filmed themselves raping her. The next day, the victim woke up. She was nauseous, but she had absolutely no recollection or memory of what had happened. She had no idea they raped her. On June 29th, Paul and Carla got married. They had a big, extravagant wedding. People are onlooking, jealous of their relationship, having no clue that these two psychopaths were some of the worst people to ever walk the earth. Coincidentally, on the same day as their wedding, June 29th, a couple was canoeing on Lake Gibson where they discovered the boxes filled with concrete with Leslie's remains. They called police, probably fucked up for the rest of their lives that they found body parts on a lake, and they'll probably never go to a lake ever again. But they called police. This is the Leslie that Paul and Carla had killed previously that month. How coincidental that Leslie's remains were found on the same day Paul and Carla were getting married. It's like her spirit was like, nope, on the day of your wedding, I'm gonna be found and you're going down for what you did to me. In August, the same friend that Carla met at work, who had no recollection of what had happened to her, went back over to Paul and Carla's. And much like the incident with her sister Tammy, her friend, Jane Doe, because I could not find her name online, vomited on her own throw up after being drugged. But this time, Paul and Carla were successful at reviving her. She did not die. On April 16th, 1992, Paul and Carla kidnapped Kristen French while she was leaving school. They pulled over, they asked if Kristen could help her with directions. Paul gets out of the car, puts a knife to Kristen's back, and forces her to get into the vehicle. Now this is in the middle of the day, broad daylight, when they kidnapped her, and there were a few witnesses that saw this go down. She had a missing shoe that fell out when she was being thrown into the vehicle, and people saw the car. For 3 days straight, Leslie was forced to drink alcohol. She was forced to watch Leslie's tape that recorded her own rape. She was forced to call Paul her master and refer to herself as a slave. Towards the end of her being in captivity, she started to get resilient. She refused to call him master. She didn't want to play his games, and she even told both of them that some things are worth dying for. So she was willing to die than be forced to do what they wanted to do anymore. Eventually, Paul took a cord, wrapped it around Kristen's neck, and held it there for almost 7 minutes to make sure that she was dead. And when she was dead, they put her body in the basement and left it there, and then went and had dinner with Carla's family. Later, they washed her in the bathtub, they cut off all her hair, and then threw her body in a dumpster. Her face was badly beaten, and the tip of her pinky was missing. When Kristen's body was eventually found, they determined that both Leslie's murder and Kristen's murder were done by the same person or persons. They composited a sketch and they released it to the public and media, and again, the sketch resembled Paul. Coworkers and friends are now seeing this image, and they're like, that looks like Paul Bernardo. So they call police and they tip him off about Paul's violent tendencies and his weird, strange behavior. He was actually interviewed by 2 police officers a month after Kristen was murdered, but they found him to be an unlikely suspect. Even after Paul admitted to the police, he had already been questioned for being the Scarborough rapist. Like, what? How do you find him not to be a likely suspect if he was being questioned for an entirely different set of crimes? How? On December 27th, Paul beat Carla with a flashlight, and I mean like beat her badly. Repeatedly hit her in the face with a flashlight. Carla goes to work. She tells her coworkers she was in a car accident. None of her coworkers believe her at all. So her coworkers did the right thing and they called Carla's parents. Carla's parents pick her up and they make her go to the hospital. While she's at the hospital, she confesses to the nurses that Paul in fact beat her and caused these bruises all over her body. Paul was then arrested for domestic violence. When he was arrested, they took his DNA. Now at the same time all this is happening, which is 2 years after he gave his DNA samples to the cops who were doing interviews for the Scarborough rapist, they were just now testing that DNA. 2 years later. And because they were testing it at the same time he got arrested for the beating he put on Carla, it matched. His DNA matched to the DNA for the Scarborough rapist. Carla moved in with her aunt and uncle, and it did not take her long to confess that Paul was in fact the Scarborough rapist and has raped multiple women and committed multiple murders. When she went to police, she tried to get full immunity for giving them full details about everything that happened. She was trying to save herself. Police refused to give her full immunity, but instead they offered her 12 years instead of what could have been a probable life sentence to give them full details of some of the rapes and the murders. Carla obviously accepted this plea deal because 12 years sounds a lot better than life or the death penalty. In 1995, when Paul went to trial, Carla testified against him. Paul was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole until 25 years. Now how he would ever get the possibility of parole ever in this life is beyond me. He raped multiple women and killed innocent people and then tried to get rid of their bodies. Why would he ever have the possibility of parole? How? Why? I don't get it. I don't understand. During her imprisonment, Carla tried to get parole. She did not want to be in there for 12 years. She tried to say that she only behaved the way she behaves because she was a prisoner of Paul Bernardo. But the truth of the matter is, she was a psychopath before she met Paul Bernardo. Paul just brought out the worst in her. She was already bad, he just made you worse. And that's the simple truth. There's a movie on Amazon Prime called Carla, and I watched it this weekend. I forced Gabby to watch it with me. She was pissed. But basically, she's telling the psychologist who's going to either recommend that she gets paroled or denied her side of things. And at the end of the movie, it says that she was denied parole because she was manipulative, articulate, egocentric, and narcissistic. And she was on the borderline of psychosis. She was a psychopath. Even after she got the 12-year sentence, when she got out, they said that she was still a danger to society. That's how bad and awful Carla is. The movie sucked, by the way. Not good filming, kind of actually boring. It was deeply disturbing, but it wasn't like a good movie. They could have done better, for sure. If you want to watch it, sure, it's on Amazon Prime. I would never watch it again, but it was good to watch before I did this true crime video, because then I could see that literally at the end of this, the doctor that interviewed her was like, no, deny parole. She's not a victim at all. On July 4th, 2005, Carla was released from jail after she served her full 12-year sentence. And the most crazy part about this ever is that Carla moved to Guadalupe to avoid media scrutiny in 2007, and she married a man named Thierry Bordelius. I'm probably saying that completely incorrectly, but she got married. That's the point. She got married. And she had 3 kids. Not 1, not 2. She had 3 children. Now her and her family live in Montreal. Like, what? How does a woman who kills her own sister, lets a man rape her own sister, helps in the rape and murder of others, has full knowledge that her man is out raping people, not only get out of jail early, but gets married and has children? Does her husband know her background? Does her husband know who she is? How the fuck do her children live with the fact that their mother is a stone cold serial killer psychopath? And are they gonna grow up to be psychopaths just like her? I couldn't find anything online about her life now. I saw one picture of her like outside of a school because she tries to like help out at schools, I guess. And she's horrifying looking. She's even creepier looking than she was when she was in her prime. But I couldn't find anything about her personal life or her family now. And I will never get over the fact that she got married to someone who clearly knows who she is and what she did. And not only had 1 child, but she had 3 children. Her DNA is now in 3 children who are walking this earth. Let's all let that sink in for a minute. This bitch is a serial killer, psychopath, and got married and have 3 children, and I'm single? What? Anyways, guys, that is today's true crime video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys are in as much disbelief about Carla and her pretty much happy ending for her after all the terrible things she did. It's a good thing Paul's still in jail, but Carla should have never been offered 12 years. She should have gotten like maybe 5 years off a life sentence. 12 years is insane to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. But again, I will always state in my videos about true crime that I do not, and I probably will never understand sentencing. It just doesn't make sense to me, and in this case it doesn't make sense to me, and it makes me even more confused that a man would marry a woman who would kill her own sister. The fact that she would even get a moment of happiness ever again after the thing she did is crazy to me. But give this video a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but as I always say, for giving it a thumbs down, you probably shouldn't be on this channel. But if you are going to be here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, but also hit that bell, because if you don't hit the bell, you will not get notifications, and if you don't get notifications, what is the point? There is none. Most importantly, subscribe to me and my twin sister's Wave channel. Link is at the top of the description box. We have more exclusive videos and content outside of true crime on our Wave channel. All my social media is also in the description box, so follow me here, there, and everywhere. I love you guys to the moon and back. If you find yourself in a relationship with an abusive man, get help. Do not let these men control you. It is not worth it. And if you know someone who's got all the warning signs and the clear telling signs of being a psychopath or an individual who could be very dangerous, tell someone. Don't be quiet. You could be saving a life. Okay? I love you all. Bye.